11th. Wow, 11th of February. And it is, as you can see, I'm in the office today. We have the Parkify spinners with us in our little side room off the side there, which is awesome. We just so love having them here, which is great. And it's just so buzzy out in the shop at the moment. They're all out there. There's wheels. They bring morning tea. It's it's loads and loads of fun. So I have now had to jump into my office space. I've got Claire over my shoulder quietly clicking and working away. Phones have been taken off the hook, so fingers crossed we won't be disturbed, and we won't have anyone bursting through the door. It'll be just our luck, Claire. We'll get a fire alarm, won't we? Honestly, sometimes you just can't make this stuff up. How's everyone's week's been? I know I didn't come and visit you on Monday because I was working in the shop on Monday, and it was great. It was so nice, actually. So many people were in the bay for the weekend and came and visited and said hello, and I really enjoy it. I really did have such a lovely day pottering around in the shop and got absolutely zero knitting done, which I thought might have happened, but it was great. It was really, really enjoyable. So that was awesome. And also, too, it gives me a chance to have a good play around with a lot of the yarns that are in the shop that sort of come in and they fleet in and fleet out, and I don't really get a chance to sort of have a good look at them and really figure out what's going on. And it's just great. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. To the end, I was actually quite determined today to actually have my Miss Jane completed for you, and it didn't happen. Why I set these goals for myself, I don't know, because I shouldn't really, but I am into sleeves now, so I am making progress. It is chipping away slowly. Oops, and of course I picked this up and stitches go popping off left, right, and centre. Hold on, let me just go and pick those up before we end up in a power of poo. Right. Morning, everybody. And you know what is really nice about this is I have this bigger screen because I'm using my desktop. The bigger screen means I can actually read your comments without my glasses on, which is nice, which is what I can't often do on the other side. Morning, everybody. Oh, wow, I've got everything. Sue's here. Sue's saying Rebel looks great, and this is Sue's yarn. Yes, it is. And actually, so I'm having to wear it. I don't know what it's like at Maree this morning, but it was a bit chilly here. She had to go out to the shop. She's got my pop cardigan on because we sort of arrived here and it was sort of a bit, not as expected. So it will warm up. Yesterday, we've had that crazy sort of subtropical thing going on here in the bay. So it's sort of been starting out. It's been very, very, like, it's blue sky today, but it's actually been really quite grey and incredibly humid. But anywho, it's sorted itself out today. Apparently, we're not supposed to go swimming today because of a potential of unsettled seas due to the tsunami, but not that I won't be scaring anybody at the Ahuriri beach. I can assure you of that. Right, here we go. So that is how we're looking at the back with all the stripes. And I'm going to pull this up a little bit. There is what I've gone and done at the bottom. So I have done this sort of lace finish. I've gone and replicated this panel I've gone and done up here. Now, if you're wondering where to actually find this lace pattern I've just gone and taken straight from my Ever After cowl. So if you go onto Ravelry and just put Ever After cowl in, you'll find it. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. The maths for this cowl, the stitch pattern, are very, very simple. You just need to have a multiple of 12. As long as you've got a multiple of 12, you are good to go. So when it came down to here, I only had to do a minimal amount of fudging to get to a multiple of 12. I think I only had to fudge, I think it was only 2 or 3 stitches. But I'm really happy with that. Really, really happy. So I've done about, what have I done? I have done 1, 2, 3. I've done three pattern repeats. 1, 2, 3. Yes, 3 pattern repeats. So you get this nice little wave at the end, and I'm just going to hold this up. I wasn't too sure how to finish it. So my dilemma was, do I then do moss stitch to finish to match the band here? And I sort of, my concern was I just thought it was going to, the moss stitch sort of blocks it off and kind of doesn't go with this sort of ribbed fan of the lace. So all I did is I thought, well, I'm just going to put a single ribbing in there and see what happens. And I actually think the single ribbing looks great. It is just, I think there's only, that's 4 rows of single ribbing, just 1 by 1 rib, nothing special. And it's enough rib that it will sit flat. It's not going to curl on you. And it just sort of looks almost like an extension of the cowl itself, to the point that I'm actually going to, I think I might do that as a modification on the Ever After cowl itself. I mean, at the moment, the cowl is written with a garter stitch band, but just looking at this, I'm actually thinking a ribbing band would look great too. See these happy accidents. So that is where I'm at there. And then I have started sleeves. So here's me with my trusty little sleeve needles that I have. And that's where I'm at now. Now, this is the interesting thing. I'm using Pulse Ripple. And look at the difference. You can see this with the stripes, just as I hold this up, between much larger rounds. And you get these more of a defined stripe. But here I am in the sleeve, and it's a much more diffuse stripe through the sleeves, a much more diffuse stripe, which I do quite like. So I'm actually really intrigued to see how the rest of the sleeves come out in this. So it's chugging along well. I'm being completely monogamous on it at the moment. Sorry, let me just move that around. There we go. Completely monogamous on it at the moment because I want to get it completed, and I am feeling the hankering for a bit of baby knitting because I know a couple of people that are expecting, and I want to be able to quietly knit something for them. What I'm looking at potentially knitting for them actually is flax. Either flax or the Harvest Cardigan, both by Tin Can Knits. Both of them, I think, are free on Ravelry, and both of them use a worsted Templar yarn. And then that way I can play around and knit with the new vintage broad 10-ply, which I am really looking forward to doing. I've gone and pulled this. Now, I can't take credit for this. I've just literally ripped it off the blocking board that we've had here. But we finally just blocked up some of that for you, just to show you what it looks like knitted up. This will be going out in the shop. This is the thing I love about our vintage yarn, is that it is, if you had to have one single everyday yarn that performs well in terms of wear, feel, handle, stitch definition, color, to me, if I had to just pick one yarn, vintage would be it. And I mean, I've been very open about my love for vintage. It's a yarn that I just absolutely adore, and this is why. I mean, just look at that beautiful stitch definition. Beautiful. That's just straight stocking stitch. Beautiful and smooth, nice and blocked. This is more than suitable to go for babies. The other thing too about the vintage Temply is that you can obviously up your needle size a little bit. So when it comes to things like blankets, this is a great go-to. So if you're wanting to knit blankets for the home, blankets for babies, this Temply is going to be absolutely ideal. I did pop out a newsletter. Since I couldn't give you a diary this week, I was very good and whipped out a newsletter on Tuesday morning. And I was just sort of musing about those sorts of ideas. And one of the things that I popped up was a blanket by Nora Gone, which I remembered from years ago. And it was, I think she just called it her Afghan block blanket or Afghan blanket. It's in the newsletter. And it was great because it's free on Ravelry, and it's just a blanket made up of a whole bunch of essentially samplers. And what I love about it is that you can pick which blocks you want to do, because you don't have to do all of them that she's laid out in there. You may just decide that you want to do 2 blocks, like a plain stocking stitch block like this, and interdisperse it with a cabled block or a textured block or what have you, and then play around with colors. But what it does is it gives you it's really a stitch dictionary in blanket form, and it's a really great fun thing to do. And often these sampler blankets came about when people were actually swatching for different designs, and you actually did a decent size swatch to a uniform size that you could then actually stitch together and create a sampler or a blanket or a cushion or what have you afterwards. So if you haven't opened that newsletter yet and it's sitting in your inbox, do go back and have a look at it, because I think it's worth it just to download that pattern alone. It's fantastic. Hold on a second. Pick that back up. And it's just a bit, because you can actually just pull so many colours together. The other thing we've done this morning, Claire and I have been very, very busy, and we've gone and pulled together a variety of patterns for you to actually potentially look for the template. So, I mean, I mentioned those two from Tin Can, but there are a number of patterns out there that will actually work in this yarn. Sometimes you just need to have a hunt around and a look, and sometimes you need to go back in time a little bit. I don't know about you, but I mean, the habit, honestly, you just jump onto the Ravelry top 20, you know, what's hot, and you see what's going right now. But there is the back catalogue of things is immense. So it's often a matter of actually scratching a little bit further below the surface to find out what's out there. A really good example of that are these, which I came across last week. All these three patterns have actually come out of West Knit's book 5. So you can, if you liked all three of them, you would be better off to actually purchase the entire ebook, which you can do. It was a collaboration, I think, primarily between Stephen and Cerelia Rose. It's what I love about it is that these particular patterns here all work so incredibly well with the new yarns that we've got in at the moment. So kicking off with the template that I just spoke about, this was just a really classic textured ponchos. Ponchos are starting to come back, right? So you can, I mean, they've been around, and this one from Stephen, I mean, it's a classic Stephen poncho because he won't necessarily wear it as a poncho. I rest my case. However, that I think gives you a really good idea. It's simple, it's classic. I love the big ribbed turtleneck on it. It is knitted in the round, but it is relatively straightforward. It's got a nice little piece of contrast, some simple increasing through the center there, and it would look fantastic. Like if you wanted to emulate what he's got there. Oh, and I didn't grab the paprika. Oh, yes, I did. I'll grab one on the 8 ply. I'll show you in that. So you could, hold it up. You could do exactly what Stephen's done there with the paprika and the grey. No problem whatsoever. Or you could just play around with your own pops of colour. I mean, if you've got some leftovers from another project, just for that contrast, you could use the leftovers. You could just do it all in one colour. It's a really, that is a poncho that I think would be really, really wearable and you'll be able to use again and again. The other two that were in there was this one here. Now, I think this one was a DK. Yes, this was DK. Now, I loved this because of its quirky construction, and it's the sort of thing that you could play around with. And now she's written it. It's been written in DK, but I'm going to show you the schematic for the construction because it is a really sort of simple vest based on a origami style construction. Do you see that? Now, it is quite an avant-garde piece, but what I love about it is that, I mean, Cerelia is obviously, this is Cerelia here. She's obviously tiny. And as you can see, it's sort of more ponchoed here, sort of more wrapped there. That's what the back looks like with all those colours. But the thing is I mean, this is written to a DK, but you wouldn't have to stick to it in a DK. If you wanted to actually up your needle size, I mean, they've gone and done here. It's using a fine DK. They've done 3.75 millimeter needles. I mean, you could do 4s, no problem. This is not a firm fitting item. So, you know, to be honest with you, you could play around with this and you could actually play around and jump up onto a 5 millimeter needle and use the vintage abroad 10 ply And that will give you a bump of around, I've even wrote that down before, that will give you a bump of around 20%. So it'll make it about 20% bigger. So for someone like me, I would probably be better off to do it in the vintage board and make it just a wee bit bigger. But it's just a nice way to play around with some colour and give you something in your wardrobe that looks a little bit different and edgy and not just sort of the norm. The last one I pulled out was one actually designed by Cerelia. It's called Heckler. And I pulled it out because that's it there. And it's quite a free-form style of knit. So the instructions are not your normal instructions. So you just need to be a little bit more open-minded. It's written for a DK weight. But I pulled it out for a couple of reasons. One, there it is there. I just instantly thought of what you could do with that, with a mixture of both pulse through the center and vintage around on the sleeves. Because that's the other thing, is because of the count of our pulse and our flight, it's exactly the same count as a vintage DK. So they are actually interchangeable. You can change them around. So that, more back to front today, honestly. That is the pulse tempo there. So this is just a single ball, well, part of a single ball knitted up, just to give you an idea. Now this one, this one is, tempo. If you were to do this, you could do that whole central panel in the pulse and not worry about your stripe pattern if you didn't want to. Or you could do the stripe pattern and add back a contrast colour. And I've just gone and grabbed 4 colours straight from the vintage range that honestly, any of these colours would work with tempo. Let me get my fingers in here so I can hold them up for you. Well, you know you want to. There we go. There they are. So any of these, so those there, we've got Persian green, paprika, chili, and truffles. Any of those would work with the tempo. Look at that. Any of them. So that in itself, I mean, gosh, the Nanilchik Swancho. I mean, I would do main colour and that, and there's your Swancho right there. Any of those combinations would work. So don't be afraid to play around from colour and jump from range to range. I mean, we've already spoken about moving the pulse, using the pulse and flight together, but don't be afraid to use this vintage DK with the pulse as well. See, that's the quiver. If you wanted a lighter version, also works with those shades just as well. So, those are some ideas that will work really, really well if you're wanting to have a little bit of a play around for something a bit modern. Now, I mean, the theme is vintage after all. I have to say, I'm loving, oh man, there have been some cobwebs blown out and some dust blown off, has there not? I just love some of the stuff that's been posted up. Some of those patterns are amazing. A lot of those patterns, I have to admit, are from the collection here. And doesn't it show you the enduring power of them, that we haven't thrown them out, and they've been kept and they've been handed down again and again and again and again. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'm going to be putting out another pattern in today's newsletter, actually, which will be perfect. I'm going to show it to you now. Where is it? I was very organised and prepared it earlier. No, not that one. That one. The one that's going out in the newsletter today is from the May edition, 1950, of Stitchcraft magazine. And as you can see, it's the trousseau edition. So there you go. Not Trudeau, trousseau edition. And I just love this pattern because it is one that is perfect for what we're talking about. It's knitted and double knitting. So this one's ideal because I think you're going to be able to do this in either vintage DK or vintage worsted. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But this is it here. It's called Serenade. Isn't it gorgeous? And it's actually, to be honest with you, that is really quite incredible in the sense that it's really, really pretty. It's got some nice piece of waist shaping, very strong shoulders, I did have a look at the shoulders. I mean, they've obviously got a shoulder pad in there. You wouldn't need to do a shoulder pad. It's written. There is actually some shoulder shaping written in there, but it is a really, really classic piece. Now, it's written obviously with a classic cable and a rib stitch. And the thing with a lot of these patterns, of course, is that they weren't known for either size inclusivity or actually providing a range of sizes. That's one of the things that's really intrigued me by going through all of these patterns, is often only 1, 2, or 3 sizes were offered at best. It was really unusual if you got beyond 3 sizes. Most of these patterns in these magazines, only a single size was offered. In this particular case, again, only a single size was offered. It worked out that in this instance, it was about a 35-inch bust. That was a very long time ago for me, I might add. But there are ways that you can fudge this, and having a look at this, because it is written in fronts and backs, the fudging of it will be relatively simple. So this is written to a standard, so on DK, and it's been written to they're saying here, it was because it's cabled, so 24 stitch tension. Now, I've just done some quick knit maths on this. If you were wanting to jump out and not knit this on a number 7 needle, which is a 4.5 millimeter, and then jump out to a 5 millimeter needle, that will actually give you an increase of 10% right off the bat. So it will make this 10% bigger than what is written. If you were wanting to do some additions in here, if you have a look at that pattern, see how you've got, hold your finger there, see how you've got the 2 lots of cables, then a double lot of rib and more cables. This is where you're going to burgle your extra width, because length is easy. You just throw in extra cable repeats to give yourself the length. This is not a problem. But where you actually burgle your width is in those ribs. So you can either add an extra cable through there, an extra rib through there, and you do it through this central portion here. So then that way you don't disturb your shaping in either the armhole or the neckline. So you just, you can actually, with a modicum of effort, make some modifications to this to be able to get some sizing there. So this is, I PDF'd this. It's going to be going out in the newsletter. And I've also PDF'd it with that. Look, a finishing school and beading, stitching some beading, because I just thought that was fabulous too. So that will be coming out in today's newsletter. So keep an eye out for that. In terms of just some basic knit maths, I thought I'd throw this. I've talked about knit maths before, but these, when I make my 1,000,001 modifications that I often do, one of the biggest modifications that I will often make is I will see a project made in one yarn, and I will decide in my veritable style, no, I don't want to use that yarn. I want to use something else, and ultimately it's a different weight. So the first thing I always do is I will swatch whatever the new yarn is that I'm planning to use. And that will give me a revised gauge. So swatch and block it. So once I've got that swatched and blocked gauge, from there I can do some basic maths. So the trick is it's all around percentage increase or percentage decrease. So in the case of these vintage patterns, when you're digging around in your stash, you will find a lot of those patterns are 3-ply and 4-ply, the vast majority. There are some DKs, and I have to admit, I have come across quite a bit of what they call quicker knit or triple knit or even chunky. So they are out there and you can find them. The trick is just finding that percentage increase. So, for example, I mentioned before one of those patterns, I think the Heckler, there was an 18 stitch tension. If you want to move to a 20 stitch tension, so from 18 stitches to 20 stitches, that is a difference of 10%. So it's a fairly simple number. If you're working from 18 stitches to 22 stitches, that's a difference technically of 18%, and often I will work on around 20% as a round number. So those are actually really common shifts between moving from a DK to a 10-ply, whether you go from a 10-ply pattern down to a DK or vice versa. It just allows you to realize that that's how much the pattern is going to move. And often in a pattern, some patterns are written with sizing increases at around every 10 to 15%. Other patterns have sizing increases which are much greater, around 20%. So you can then do one of two things. You can then look at the sizing that they have and decide, I'm going to do a different size. Or if you're already sitting at the largest or smallest size, you know that by changing your needle size accordingly, knitting those sizes, those are the percentages that you're going to be shifting, whether they be up or down. You just need to watch your length as you go along. So it is actually quite straightforward. Once you start getting to the finer weights, that's where those percentages actually can shift a lot more. The larger, the thicker the yarn, the percentage shifts are quite small, but the thinner the yarn, they can get quite big. So just an example, going from double knit to 4-ply, so a 22 stitch tension to a 28 stitch tension, which is quite a common jump, you're looking at a 27% shift, either up or down. So that's a quarter size. So just those are the little things that you need to be aware of. But if you understand those basic shifts in maths, it does make a huge difference when it comes to working out what size you're going to knit. And as I said before, length often is the one thing that you can easily control. You can always do less stitching coming up or add more stitching going down. It only becomes really tricky when you've got a pattern that a measurement is actually not decided by an actual physical measurement of length, but you're actually working a number of rows. So that's where you just need to make sure your row gauge is also congruent to the pattern. I hope that's as clear as mud, but believe me, it is having that skill of just being able to slightly size up and down really does broaden the field in terms of the patterns that you use. I use this sort of knit maths all the time. Don't worry, I'm not sitting out there with a slide rule working this out. Most of this I just will roughly fudge in my head. And blocking, believe me, Claire's just snickered over my shoulder here. She knows fully well that there's a lot that gets worked out in the head and then promptly forgotten because I never write anything down. But honestly, don't get too caught up. It's not as hard as you might think. So that's just some basic maths for you. Right, let's jump in and see where everyone's at today because I've been a bit tardy and now that I can read the screen, which is really exciting. Oh gosh, you're all here this morning. It's so good to see everybody. Susan is here. Right, Susan, I'm glad you're here. Susan Hagedorn is here, and she's just reminded me you're a perfect segue, Susan, because one of the things that I have gone and done, and Sue Goodley's another one as well, it was a good segue for this. As many of you know, I organise and run the Knit August Nights retreat here in Hawke's Bay every year, except for last year for obvious reasons. And it is definitely happening for 2021, COVID willing. And everything is in place, and I have been updating the website with a whole heap of details. So one of those details is a quick snapshot of the classes that are available. And Susan is going to be doing a class actually here at Skeinz. And that class will be open to anybody, open to the public. You will not require a Knit August Nights registration to attend that class. So it means that if you happen to be in the Bay for the weekend, but you can't go to the retreat, you can pop along and actually register for that class and actually book it and have a little bit of fun here at our Skeinz store. So do jump on knitaugustnights.co.nz and have a look at what is available. I'm really delighted at the classes. The theme for this year is homegrown, so it's everything that is the best of what we have here locally, and that also includes some wonderful new tutors, including our wonderful Ethan, which joins us here every month from Outlaw HQ. He will be taking a full raft of classes. So if you've been itching to meet Ethan in real life and you're a North Island dweller that doesn't get to Christchurch to see him in his natural habitat at Outlaw HQ, you're most welcome to register to CAN or even pop to the public day on Sunday and he will be there. So do pop that in your calendars. The first big calendar date to remember is May 1st, 10 a.m. That's when registration's open, but I do suggest you have a good look and start doing some planning before then. If you've never registered for CAN before, it is a little bit like booking concert tickets, I'm afraid. And some of those classes do sell out lightning fast. I think the first class last year sold out within 3 minutes. So it can be really, really quick. But do have a good look at that, because it is, if you've been planning a winter escape and you're wanting to come and visit both the Skeinz store and Hawke's Bay, do come and visit us and use Knit August Nights as the excuse. We would love to see you. And Susan is doing a couple of classes, both in the event proper and that one here at Skeinz. Oh, gosh. Oh, it looks like the weather is all a little bit over the show everywhere. So I'm glad it's not just here. Which is awesome. Oh, here we go. Patricia is asking, would vintage abroad Templi be suitable for the Martin Story pattern, calling for Rowan hemp tweed, 4mm, 4.5, 19 stitches to 10 centimeters? The short answer to that, Patricia, is yes, definitely, actually. Just based on the information that you've provided, for sure. Our swatching with this yarn is it consistently gets us around 18 stitches on 5mm and 20 stitches on 4.5, which is what it's designed to do. So, yeah, I mean, with a little bit more aggressive blocking, you'd get a 19 stitch tension, no problem. So, absolutely would consider that. Right. Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, thank you, Eleanor. Eleanor just answered that question as well. Yeah, the drape will be slightly, Eleanor is just saying the drape will be slightly different because there's a different fibres used in the 2 yards. Otherwise, the gauge should work. Now, the other thing to remember too around that is the yarn that the tweed mentioned, the hemp tweed, obviously is a plant fibre yarn, so it doesn't give you quite the same structure or yarn memory. Vintage is 100% wool, so it will give you, that's part of its beauty, is it will give you really good structure and stitch definition. The other thing too is that it's a woolen spun yarn as opposed to a worsted spun yarn I am picking. So that also acts slightly differently as well, whereas vintage is very much a worsted spun yarn. Gosh, it's great to see everybody here. Oh, Maureen, don't talk to me about Swatch Show. I can't get short rows sorted on that one. Why? I don't know. Maureen, do you and I need to have a video call on short rows? If you get stuck, Maureen, you give me a yell and I will get you. I know they seem a little bit counterintuitive. Have you go back and check? I think I talked about the short rows on the Swatch Show in one of the earlier videos. Do persevere with that. And you know what, Maureen, if you've gotten to the point, I think they wrote them for German short rows. If that's what's annoying you, don't do a German short row, just do a wrap and turn. And then when you head on your way back, just knit that wrap back. Honestly, I don't want you stressing about those wraps and turns, Maureen. I really don't. Okay. Patricia just said about the vintage patterns. They obviously weren't worried about obesity back then. Could you imagine me back then? Oh, my Lord. They wouldn't know what to do with me. What did they have? What is that pattern I showed the other day? Mature and matronly. That would have been me. Very matronly. Very good. Excellent. Okay, right, what next have I got on my list? I had knit mess. I've got, honestly, so much stuff sitting here. More patterns. I did print out more patterns. So I jumped over. I'm going to show you some new yarn that we've got in from Cascade. And one of the things I adore about Cascade is that they have incredible pattern support. They're wonderful. And they use a number of designers in the US. They have a huge variety, and the best thing about them is they're all free. And it's great. So for us, being able to get their yarns in and actually know instantly there's a catalogue of patterns there for them has been such a relief, an absolute relief. So before I jump away on the vintage the vintage worsted rather, I did jump into the Cascade site to see what they have, a similar yarn, and they do. They have a superwash yarn. Ours isn't superwash, but a superwash Aran yarn. And there were 2 patterns in there that really leapt out that I thought would be perfect for the vintage abroad worsted 10-ply. The first one is this little one here called the Charlie Pullover. Isn't that so super cute? And often it's really difficult to find patterns for this sort of age. This is just, it's only a single pattern. It's written for a 7-year-old, but obviously, you know, you'd get a bit of latitude with that. But look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? Really gorgeous, simple color work. It's very, very fun. You'd be easily able to do that in vintage aboard, any two contrasting colors. So that one I think is an absolute sweetie. The other one which I loved, and this one had 4 sizes, medium through to 2XL. I loved this one because it will completely accentuate the positive properties to in vintage abroad. And this one is just called the Everyday Pullover by Melissa Leitman. And as you can see, it's a sort of, this is a very simple sort of what they call garter ribbing. And then as you can see, a very deep V'd herringbone cable up through the center. And it is just utterly gorgeous. And I think that would be one. And it also had an asymmetrical back as well. The back was slightly longer. I think it shows it in that image there. The other reason I love this, and I pulled this one out, is I know a number of you have contacted me and asked. I know a lot of the designs that I will often feature will be for top down or worked in the round or single piece patterns, and a number of you don't like working in that format. You do prefer to work modular or in pieces. This one is actually worked in that format. So just jumping around to the schematic. So it comes complete with schematic measurements, which means that you can actually make alterations. That's the other nice thing about this one, is that because of the nature of the pattern, you would easily be able to adjust lengths through here. It's, yeah, all the information that you need. For a free pattern, there's a lot of information in that one, so definitely well worth checking that one out. The reason I jumped on to the Cascade site this morning was because we have got our Cascade Lace in store, and I've just gone and grabbed a few here to show you. Look at those. Now, I've grabbed this little collection. That's just this most beautiful natural grey. It's so soft. It is so incredibly soft. But we've also got some really, they've got a couple of heathers in the range. Oh, see, there you go. The red shows that heather beautifully. Let's pull that there. So, here we go. And look at those blues. Oh, so divine. And again, super, super, super soft. So one of the things I did, and I'm going to see if this is going to work. Ta-da! It's working. So one of the things we did is I've gone and pulled together, this is the pattern page for this yarn. So it's baby alpaca, 50 grams, 400 meters per skein. So I know that there are so many patterns out there that call for a double-stranded fingering or lace weight yarn, and they are at that sort of 400 meter starting point. So that is a really good thing to look towards. And this is the other thing. Look at all of those patterns. There's a number, some stoles, there's scarves, there's shawls, there's this lovely turtleneck sweater here. So there is plenty of oh gosh, I can only see half of there. There you go. So there's plenty there for you to have a look at. So this is the one I wanted to show you. I was going to use the, but I've discovered that's what's been cutting out on me when you lose me. This one here is the one that we especially liked. This is Early Blooms. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a gorgeous shawl. You could wear it as a shawl. You could wear it as a really large sort of scarf. It's got this gorgeous little sort of almost daisy-like lace pattern through the center. The reason I really wanted to pick this one out for you is that the other thing that often happens with a lot of these lace weight patterns is all you get given is a chart like this. And for many of us, you don't like a chart. You know, you like to be able to read your instructions and know what you're doing. And this one is the best of both worlds, because not only does it provide a chart, but it provides full written instructions for every single row. So it covers both bases. And I know for many, they will see these beautiful lace patterns, they'll pull them down, and all they've got is charted instructions, and it just rubs them bonkers. So that one there, if you're wanting to sort of emulate that, I mean, look at that. Oh, beautiful. I mean, the nice thing is you could do 2 contrasting colors, but it's stunning, absolutely stunning. So that was that one, and this was the turtleneck that was featured in there, and that's fun if you're wanting a really beautiful, soft item to wear. There is this. Interesting schematic again. There is a small amount of cabling and stuff in the front, which you wouldn't necessarily have to do, to be perfectly honest with you. You could actually leave that cable panel off the center if you want, if you just wanted a very, very plain turtleneck. And it is written, and actually the measurements were great, bust size from 34 through to 46 inch. So to be honest, I'd be able to, 46 inch would be me. So it has got a pretty good size range. So that's another one. It's got quite an interesting gauge, but I think it's one of those things that everything will be revealed in the blocking. Free now on the Cascade site. Just look up when they have patterns. So cascadeyarns.com under patterns, and just look for alpaca lace, and all of those patterns will appear. Right, what else did I have on my list of things to do? Oh, restock's coming back in. Water lilies. I know so many of you have been waiting for our water lilies baby yarn. The Renoir is here. We're hoping, well, we've seen the Maree come through in thread waste, which means that the balled yarn is imminent. So that may even be here tomorrow or Monday. So do keep an eye out for that. So it is definitely on the way. And as I said before, if you're stuck on anything, just give us a holler, info@skeinz.com. We're here to help. We'll come in and see the girls in the shop if you happen to be in the Bay, and we will try and help sort anything out for you that we can. We want to make your knitting life as easy as possible. Don't forget our vintage month carries on all of this month. So that's both vintage abroad and vintage DK. These are going to be $4.95 this month only, all the way across the month. And you definitely want to get those this month, because our sales event, as many of you know, are happening next month. The vintage is not going to be, this is the best price. This is a much better price. It will be better priced more competitively this month than next. I can guarantee that. The other thing, next weekend, we have got the fabulous Lynn Walsh from Fibre to Go coming to visit us here at Skeinz for a special pop-up shop for 2 days, Friday and Saturday. So if you are about, or you're thinking that you're going to pop to the Bay, or you're living a little bit further afield and you need to pop to the Bay for whatever reason, that would be a great time to come visit, because Lynn will be here with all her yarn, but also all her fabulous, beautiful, stunning fibre for hand spinners. So we can't wait to see Lynn. And happy birthday to Lynn yesterday, by the way, if you're watching. We can't wait to have her. It will be so much fun. She will be in our special room there, and she will have the whole space to herself. So if you're a fan of Lynn's and you can't wait until Knit August Nights to see her, or even Woolfest up in Auckland, you make sure you pop in and see Lynn here at our pop-up shop in a little over a week. Right. Quick question from Claire. I have a question about Can. What are the Skeinz sessions? I haven't been before, and I wonder if there's mill tours as well. Claire, brilliant question. The Skeinz sessions are the session I actually mentioned before with Susan, which are sessions that don't require registration to the event of Can itself. So you can just attend that class without event registration. So that's what those are. Also, too, the mill tours, yes, they are available. We do those on the Saturday morning. They start at 9, 10, 11 and 12, and they are around then. And we run a shuttle from East Pier across to the mill to do those, and they are fantastic. So they're with the team, and they will go around and give you a tour of just a quick inkling of what happens inside the mill. We don't do them very often now. We can only do them on those Saturdays when the mill isn't in operation due to health and safety and requirements. But if you want to have a glimpse behind the scenes of what goes on with so many of our yarns, that is a really, really good time to do it. So it is loads of fun. But definitely, if you are able to register for the event, it's worth doing. Look, I've got participants that come that don't necessarily do any classes. They just do the base registration and then they just come and hang out for the weekend. The base registration actually gets you access to Can Central, which is over at East Pier in Ahuriri. We have an exclusive market. There's just lots going on and things to see, and people just enjoy being able to hang out. David and his team at East Pier have been so accommodating to me over the last decade, and they're just great. I mean, I hold this, if you've not been before, I hold this knitting event in a seaside suburb in a bar. Well, it's now a fully fledged hotel. When it started, it was just a pub. So we literally sit by the ocean, looking out at the sea, knitting, enjoying, chatting, and just really loving yarn and enjoying spending time with each other. If you do come every year, or you've been previous, you will love what Dave has gone and done at East Pier. He's completely revamped the outside area. He's improved the seating. There's so much more seating outside now. So it's going to be wonderful for Can. I really can't wait. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So, as I said, the most important date in the short term is May 1st, 10 a.m. That's the registrations. If you want to get on the Can mailing list, just go to knitaugustnights.co.nz and scroll down. You'll see a big pink button that says subscribe. Just click on that and that gets you on the newsletter list. Right. I think I've done enough talking, Claire. I haven't forgotten anything? No, she's already handed me notes, so I think we've got everything. Very good. Right, you guys have a wonderful weekend. With any luck, I'll be here on Monday with a completed Miss Jane. But until then, enjoy your stitching wherever you are. Oh, Annie, what kind of accommodation is available in the area? Believe me, Annie, there is heaps. So East Pier Hotel and the Crown Hotel are the two accommodation partners, but we also have a number of Airbnb and Booker batches in the area, as well as a number of motels along West Quay, but also look at West Shore, which is the adjoining suburb to Ahuriri, and also too, if you want to have a look at accommodation in the city, such as the Scenic Circle Hotel, or a number of backpackers and lodges which are right in the CBD of Napier itself. It is actually only about a 15-minute gentle stroll around the hill and the walkway from the CBD to Ahuriri. So it is actually walking distance. Or if you're feeling rather adventurous, you can hire yourself a scooter or a electric scooter or a bike for the weekend. You can do that too. But yeah, there's tons of accommodation. But again, I do suggest if you are thinking of coming to, once you've got your registration, book your accommodation pretty quickly. There's nothing to my knowledge that I generally try and have it that last weekend in August because it doesn't clash with any other major events here in the Bay. So to my knowledge, touch wood, that's still the case. But definitely accommodation in and around Ahuriri can get quite clogged because of all of you attending. Right, I'm going to stop talking now. I will see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. And from us here at Skeinz, see you then. Bye.